errors because the stakes were too high. Arrest talk, criminal consequence accusations. Silence because those factors come together. Some now appears reactive, as though damage control was implemented too late. According to the reports, Mendeecees maintains that the arrest is distorted, that legal proceedings do not, that it is not the smoking gun that many are online, and that using the word arrest ignored when using shorthand for wrongdoing. The general public hasn't yet. Some viewers find resonance in this determination. They draw attention to how frequently headlines about arrests eclipse actual results, how fast suspicion solidifies once a story feels emotionally fulfilling, and how infrequently follow-ups go as far as initial perceptions. Viewers pay close attention to how polarized the reaction gets, unfairly portrayed according to one side. According to the other, denial is precisely what a person in this situation would say. Both parties believe they are justified. There is no evidence on any side, and the unsettling reality that nothing has been resolved. Commentary claims that Mendeecees believes his former interpreted as a sign of weakness and that it allowed others to define him. He is now attempting to regain control before the tale solidifies itself by refuting both the HIV allegation and the criminal storyline. The audience is captivated by the emotional impact of this event. It goes beyond what is being said. It has to do with why it is being spoken at this time. Concerning reputation, fear, on the speed at which public opinion shifts from curiosity to conviction. This seems familiar to those who have watched reality TV for years. The intensification, the alliances, the abrupt change in who is trusted and who is questioned. However, the gravity of the consequences is what sets this apart. Moral judgment, criminality, and health. These plots don't start over in the following season. One thing is evident as the responses keep coming in. This isn't a clear story with well-defined heroes and villains. Every fresh denial or accusation adds another layer to the complicated, emotional, and unresolved situation. Fans are left without clarity, observing a circumstance in which both parties claim injury. Both parties accuse the other of misrepresenting the facts, and they both feel trapped in unfavorable situations. Whether this concludes with an explanation or goes on spiraling is contingent upon subsequent events. However, for the time being, the story is in that awkward place where accusations and denial coexist. And the internet won't wait for clarification before making a judgment. The online debate becomes increasingly heated and fragmented as what appeared to be a sea is now perceived as the simultaneous several tales. Fans are responding just what Mendeecees is purportedly saying. They are respondents of everything that people close to Mendeecees claim on social media that he feels deceived not only by the claims themselves, but also by how readily they were accepted. According to him, followers claim that this is the point at which the arrest story takes center stage. According to commentary pages, Mendeecees is irritated, arrest, unexplained and uncontextualized, and just dropped into headlines like a verdict. Reports state that he maintains the incident was not even close to as dramatic as it was shown. However, nuance had that word became viral on social media. Supporters' emotions were running high because they thought they were witnessing, another well-known pattern unfold. They emphasized how frequently arrests are exploited as a stand-in for guilt, particularly when they are combined with scandal. When the internet makes connections, even fictitious ones, ceases awaiting verification. This is also the point at which Funky's podcast's significance resurfaces. Fans argue about it non-stop. Some claim it was little more than commentary. Others maintain that it unintentionally opened a door. Online conversations indicate that Mendeecees believes that although the podcast didn't outright accuse him of anything, it changed people's perceptions by encouraging speculation, assumption, and the use of worst-case scenarios to fill in the spaces. Funky supporters fiercely retaliate. They believe he never brought up his health, never accused anyone of a crime, and never claimed to be aware of anything unlawful. However, detractors contend that impact is not eliminated by purpose. Audiences take it farther on their own after a public figure is discussed in a particular way. The assertions on Tamar's motivation influenced by this tension. Rumor has it that Tamar thought her own story was getting out of hand. Sympathy was no longer assured after her poignant moment went viral. There were more questions. Opponents were more vocal. Fans claim that he changed in that setting, emotionally diverted but not purposefully intended. Mendeecees proponents contend that people don't always select the most hygienic course of action when pressure becomes intolerable. The loudest is their choice. Additionally, they think that in this instance, the HIV charge served as shock value, something that would instantly alter the discourse and divert focus from investigation. She was up against fans are sharply split on this interpretation. Some maintain that suggesting motivation is risky and unfair. They contend that presuming purpose merely increases conjecture in unstable circumstances. Others argue that purpose is precisely the subject of debate rather than proof. Perception, not judgments, is the focus of such commentary. Blogs monitoring the fallout claim that the denial has also increased behind-the-scenes discussions. Restraint is reportedly being urged by friends on both sides. There are rumors that attorneys are recommending silence, allegedly concerned about long-term harm, including emotional harm in addition to reputational harm. The human cost starts to become apparent at this point. Fans observing closely observe that both sides seem worn out, not in words made in public, but in their absence, the silence that feels more like overwhelm than strategy, the lack of follow-up, and the reluctance to give fuel. However, the internet doesn't reduce your speed. Videos of reactions proliferate. They all in different ways. It is regarded by some as evidence of innocence. Some perceive it as a text. Analysis is done on body language. Tone is examined closely. The silence becomes interpretive material. The speed at which certainty takes the place of wonder feels calm, according to reports. Talking increases the danger. Assumptions are encouraged by silence. Skepticism is encouraged by denial. Every choice seems like a loss. This, according to his supporters, explains why his internet answer was so direct, emotionless, and rejection-focused. According to reports, he doesn't want to dispute specifics in public. He wishes to prevent the narrative from developing. However, detractors contend that failing to provide an explanation allows for too much conjecture. Furthermore, denial by itself seldom ends speculation once it has taken root. Fans' responses became more intimate. Some people might relate to the sensation of being misinterpreted, of witnessing strangers change their name. Some who sympathize with Tamar's suffering contend that emotional responses are not random. This gap in empathy widens. The divide. The lack of concrete facts is what makes everything more. No records, no verifications, no official timelines, only claims answering claims. Emotion responds to emotion. Commentary pages on perception versus perception. Keep in mind that this is where reality TV culture clashes with actual repercussions. Dramatic arcs that reset are familiar to viewers. Confessions followed by apologies, arguments that are settled on film. However, this scenario doesn't act like a narrative line. There is no moderator, no reunion episode, and no obvious conclusion. Supporters start to notice that what they're witnessing doesn't end nicely. Online conversations claim that Mendeecees is concerned that the harm would persist even if everything is later clarified. Screenshots don't disappearing, clips are not retractable. First impressions are difficult. Many viewers can relate to this anxiety. They recognize the power of narratives, particularly when they involve criminality and health. Once those statements are affixed to a name, they continue to reverberate long after denials have subsided. Some supporters attempt to stand down. They remind others that these voices are frequently muffled by louder emotions, that reports are not judgments, that commentary is not, and that emotional moments are not proof. The new chapter, rather than closing the last one, isn't the only part of the tale. It concerns who is in charge of meaning, who is trusted, and how rapidly sympathy changes based on how it is framed. Fans are left to witness standoff. While one side maintains innocence, the other demands that suffering be acknowledged. And in between them, an internet that seldom waits for clarification before selecting the narrative that seems most appropriate. One thing is becoming more and more evident as the drama progresses. The perceptions become more enduring the longer this is left unsolved. And that can be the most detrimental result for all parties. The plot starts to change in unforeseen ways when the argument doesn't go away. What used to be a boisterous exchange of charges and denials now becomes more subdued, weighty, and unnerving. Instead, then focusing on what was said, fans now want to know how this scenario is affecting all parties. Mendeecees allegedly feels the burden of being judged without a trial taking place in real time, according to continuing internet criticism. According to those close to him, he is witnessing his name become synonymous with scandal. He maintains that the accusations against him have not been substantiated. Supporters contend that this phase of public controversy is the riskiest. Fans note how fast timescales shift from inquiry to conviction when perception takes the role of process. Questions are no longer asked in posts. They say things, remarks, "Don't wonder," they say. Additionally, each denial he is alleged to make is viewed as evidence that something must be true, rather than as a counterargument, concealed as this revelation spread. Feelings were running high. Discussions in fan communities indicate that everyone feels that everything has been made worse by the official source's silence. Worse, no final adjustments. No unambiguous statements. The internet quickly fills the void. This is how narratives get out of control. According to the absence of facts. In the meantime, Tamar's emphasis gets even more intricate. A few admirers start wondering if the predicament she contributed to getting worse has trapped her as well. They make the argument that the person in the center of an emotional moment loses ownership once it gets viral. Tamar supporters contend that she never requested that her suffering be examined in this manner. Opponents argue that emotional remarks made in public don't have the right to remain private. People's perceptions of everything she does after that are altered by this tension. Every time she is silent, it is examined. Every delay is discussed. Some admirers claim she's overburdened and safeguarding her mental well-being. Some say she's evading responsibility. Once more, depending on one's pre-existing beliefs, the same activity can lead to opposing conclusions. This fans start bringing the past into the present as the back and forth gets more intense. Old videos, old interviews, ancient disputes, everything becomes proof that is retroactive. People begin to rewrite history to suit their emotions. This is the point at which exhaustion sets in. Longtime viewers acknowledge that witnessing speculation wears them out rather than entertaining or shocking them. They claim that the drama is no longer enjoyable. It feels intrusive, like seeing a gradual deterioration rather than an explosion. Claim that many experiences is annoyed because the story doesn't stop regardless of what he does. People accuse him of lying when he denies. People accuse him of hiding if he doesn't say anything. People accuse him of deflecting when he defends himself. There isn't a safe answer. When the topic of arrests comes up again, this feeling of inevitability intensifies, with reused presumptions rather than fresh information. Fans observe the abrupt framing of seemingly unrelated occurrences as interrelated. Timelines were pieced together using conjecture rather than proof. Tamar supporters contend that suffering should be believed rather than questioned. Demanding. Believed rather than questioned. Demanding. This time, the sentence is devoid of feeling. It is intentional, defensive, sharp, HIV-free, and crime-free. This arrest is incorrect. That's the assertion that's currently making the rounds on blogs, timelines, and reaction channels without being verified. Fact, but in response to rumors that are making the rounds on the internet, Mendeecees is no longer remaining silent while his name is dragged through rumors, accusations, and what he perceives to be an intentional attempt to destroy his career. This new surge of to fans didn't begin haphazardly following a weird Deneva podcast. Mendeecees supposedly felt constrained by narrative rather than proof as the discourse changed and rumors began to sound more like conclusions rather than whispers, and the internet took notice. Social media commentary claims that Mendeecees is now telling those close to him that the story isn't true. It's retaliation, that the arrest wasn't justice, timing, and that Tamar Braxton, overwhelmed by her own backlash, is turning the spotlight on him to image. Fans are taken aback not only by what is being stated, but also by how changed. The internet Tamar's emotional outburst at one point. The following hearing asserts that Mendeecees is the true target, being misrepresented. No crime, no diagnosis, disintegration driven by conjecture. According to reports, Mendeecees thinks that all of this stems from the podcast moment when discussion became context and context became rumor fuel. Reports he believes the story was predetermined before he even spoke, that the internet determined who he was without waiting for information once his name was mentioned. Behind the scenes, feelings were running hot. Friends reportedly advised him to keep silent. Family was concerned that talking would simply fuel the flames. However, HIV claims started to circulate along with arrest discussion. Silence began to feel more like surrender than defense. It is said that the denial occurred at that point. It was a pushback rather than an apology or an explanation. Because this is no longer just rumor, if, as some fans claim, this is a smear campaign. According to reputation warfare and are currently overflowing, has had enough of having his fate gaining traction. The mood surrounding the incident changed immediately when the denial started to spread. A cool-headed explanation, and the sense of being trapped by an uncontrollable plot all contributed to the defensive narrative that was developing in real time. Mendeecees' neighbors, as described according to remark sites. He was taken aback by how quickly his name was linked to claims that had lasting consequences. They said to a build-up headline. The podcast discussion followed by conjecture, interpretation, and at last, don't go away. The change was also observed by spectators outside. Timelines that had been centered on Tamar's poignant moment abruptly changed course. Questions began to arise. Why was drawn into this with such vigor? Claims being verification. Music, and why did the arrest discussion coincide with the escalation of the blame narrative? Reports that are making the rounds in fan communities claim that Mendeecees apparently informed those in his immediate vicinity that the arrest was being presented as evidence of guilt rather than as a pending legal issue. According to reports, he believed that the internet stopped posing making judgments as soon as the word arrest. Anger enters the picture at the commenting channels. He thinks isn't coincidental. Abruptly shifted to Tamar as the public's sympathies started to wane. Regardless of the facts, fans claim he is positioned as the antagonist in a plot that needed one. Behind closed doors ran hot. Family members were reportedly concerned about long-term repercussions as well as public opinion. Closely following. This kind of linkage is difficult for careers to recover from or close based on even unverified assertions.